Three.
What's going on, everyone? This is the 5-Yard Pass, where we're talking everything Man United. We'll be talking about the Chelsea game and previewing the West Ham game and everything in between. I am Sudi, and this is Sham. Sham, so let's talk about the Chelsea game. What are your thoughts, and how shit did we play?
Yeah, it was a massive stalemate for the first half. It just looked like one of those turgid, poor games, and it was one of those things where when you get 11 minutes of injury time in the first half and you can see the goal at the end of that, you just know it's probably not going to be your day. Great sides tend to score goals in that time rather than concede, and just kind of knew it was not going to go too well. And then obviously De Gea's mistake in the first minute of the second half it pretty much put the stamp on the game. Just a poor performance overall. They look lethargic, and I guess the disappointing thing is, one, Chelsea didn't play particularly great. They weren't world beaters and played us off the park. And also just the idea of playing Arsenal in the final. I think if we had a choice of playing Arsenal or City, we'd probably choose Arsenal. So just disappointing to miss out on what probably would have been an easier game. I know Arsenal are playing well, but they beat Liverpool and City, but you'd still rather play them than City, I think.
Yeah. I think what Arsenal's doing now, just on that point, is what United had been doing for the last few years, where you get about 2 or 3 games where we're beating world beaters, and then just watch this weekend, whoever they're playing. It won't be as easy as they played Man City, because they made Man City look easy, man. Arsenal, they're very impressive. Anyway, for me, I thought
they deserve that.
Yeah, for me, I thought they just look lethargic, man. I don't think it's a blip to be concerned about. I just think because it's a semi-final, it feels like a huge loss. But taking into context the amount of games, general lethargy, and just little points in the game. And when your goalkeeper makes an error like that, Maguire not playing well, the whole team just kind of dropped. But I'm not too concerned. It was a nice kind of opportunity for a trophy. But I think, like I said in the last video, I think the FA Cup's been given way more importance than it was in the last 5 years or so, because Liverpool's won it and run away, and there's 4 big teams in the semi-finals. So not too worried, but obviously a few points of that we talked about was the fatigue, the subs. Like, Ollie doesn't seem to trust anyone past the best 13 to 14 players. And the biggest one would be De Gea. So you played in goals for a good 15 years playing football, you'd say? Maybe more, Sham?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on, or what's your take on De Gea staying, and should he be replaced, let's say, from game 1 next season? And where does that put Romero?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, like you said, I played football for a few years, and I was a keeper, obviously. It's interesting with keepers because it's such a unique dynamic. You can be the second best goalkeeper in the world, but if the best goalkeeper is in the team, then you're on the bench. So it's a very interesting, unique dynamic with keepers. The question is, the big issue with De Gea is just that he doesn't quite look fresh. It almost seems like post the 2018 World Cup, he just hasn't quite been the same. He got slaughtered in the Spanish press at that World Cup, and he's had a few years of people deifying him at United, and he's probably United's best player of the 2010s, to be perfectly honest. I think he won 4 Player of the Year awards at the club.
4 or 5, yeah.
So he's had a great career at United. The question, though, is what about the future? We talk about him like he's quite old. He's still 29, so he's still got, you could still get a good 6 years out of him if he was playing at a high level. As a keeper, you can play on a bit later than perhaps outfield players. You mentioned in one of the previous videos about De Gea moving from being a keeper who's making several saves a game to being a keeper who just has that 1 or 2 saves to make. And it is quite a mental switch to make. I remember when I moved to Singapore, I was playing with a team that was dominating the league and would win every game that they played. They'd win 22 out of 25 games and win the league type of thing. But every game you would sort of get 1 or 2-0 up, or it'd be 0-0, then you'd make 1 save, and then you wouldn't do anything the rest of the game and you'd win 5-0. So it's a very different thing to be switched off. I was going to say switched off, but be out of the game. And then when you come into the game, have to make that big contribution, because games now can turn on what he does, as we've seen with Chelsea. The first goal, it's a bit 50-50. Perhaps he could have saved it, perhaps he couldn't have. Giroud did well, should have been marked a bit better, but if a guy's hitting it cleanly from 5 meters out and it just sort of hits your foot and goes in, that's a 50-50. Perhaps he could have saved it, perhaps he couldn't. But then obviously the second goal Chelsea scored, that was just a blunder. And there's just been too many blunders. And when you've got the world's best backup on the bench in Romero, who's a very good backup, I don't think he's number one caliber at for United, but a very good backup. And he's played for Argentina 50 times or something, which is not to be sniffed at. And then you've got, obviously, Henderson is going great guns at Sheffield United. The two issues are basically, one, De Gea's wage. He's being paid an astronomical amount of money that no one's going to want to take on. And two, can Henderson make that switch? De Gea's had to play as a keeper, making multiple saves a match to making one or two. You can't just assume that Henderson's going to be able to do the same thing.
That's exactly what I was thinking, because he's going to make that same switch where it's going to be, again, 5-6 saves a game to one save a game for Henderson. I mean, it's the same switch. For me, I wouldn't swap him out. I think De Gea's had a rough 2 or 3 years, but he's had an amazing 7 years before that. And that block of Moyes to, let's say, Mourinho's second season, best player, best keeper in the world.
Remember when
he'd still be in the top 10. And to have a top 10 keeper in the world on his day, top 5, if not the best, maybe best at his, in terms of his shot stopping. I think he just needs a bit of confidence. And I think another season is only fair for someone who's potentially ensured United get a top 10 in some years, like that Moyes season. It wasn't for him against Everton, for example, saving penalties. We wouldn't even have come to top 10, man. So I think a little bit of gratefulness, I guess, although it's a harsh game, is only fair for someone like him.
He's fought through patches of poor form. When he first came, everyone wrote him off. And then he developed himself as a keeper. He had to grow up a bit coming from Spain. So he's shown the capability to fight. And obviously being Spanish number one, a lot of good players in Spain, a lot of good keepers in Spain. So to get to that spot, and he's fought off Iker Casillas, who obviously retired, but Casillas, Valdez, Kepa, who played well enough to be the world's most expensive keeper. Chelsea paid that money because he was playing at that level. He's not now. That's a different story. But to get to be Spain's number one, you have to be good. So as opposed to who's England's number 5 or 6. So let's not get carried away, you know. So
straight up, gun to head, would you leave De Gea in for another season based on everything up to this point?
Yeah, you'd want to. I think he needs a rest. He kind of needs to get away. Because the funny thing is, with De Gea making all these saves, he's able to make saves from shots very close in, where you don't have to think. His reflexes are there. The mistake against Tottenham, the mistake against Chelsea, they're from shots that are a bit further out. So it indicates that the players are taking shots from further out. Maybe the ball's moving a bit. Maybe he's just not. There's a bit of inattentiveness coming from tiredness, I would think. So he needs to just get away from the game, go to Survivor, stay on an island for a while, whatever. Just get away from the game for half of the off season, and then come back and train your backside off.
To the last point.
I don't know if United have the option to not play him, but he's definitely, even if they did, and I'm saying that purely because of his wages, but even if they did, I would still suggest to keep the faith.
To that point, the fatigue in a keeper, people forget goalkeepers can get fatigued, and people forget fatigue in goalkeepers come up mentally. So keepers can play 200 games in a row. You can play 1,000 games in a row if you wanted to. You could play a game every day, but that mental fatigue, that's how it's manifested. And I've been thinking to myself, he needs a rest. He needs to switch off. A lot of people saying Emilio Alvarez, the guy who was that keeper coach from his days in Atletico, came over to United. He's left as well.
Yeah. And apparently there's been quite a few goalkeeper coaches at United in the last few years. I'm not exactly sure, but I've heard that. Yeah.
Him and Eric Steele, they both have left, and he was quite close to both of them. You never know. There's so many factors, but I think a rest, and I wouldn't swap him up. Still think he's on his day one of the best in the world, in specific skills, the best. So, yeah. All right. Next thing we wanted to talk about was top 4. So, it seems that, well, not seems, but it is, if United gets 6 points and Chelsea drop any points, we're in for third. So things can move very quickly, but at the same time, we could lose 2. and come off fifth, because with Man City obviously paying off FFP, they've got second place.
Yeah.
I guess we could tie it into the West Ham game. So what do you think about the West Ham game? Actually, I'll just kind of rattle off some kind of match facts here, if you just give me a second. So we've played them in the last 5 games. Last 6 games in the Premier League. We've only won 2. We've lost 3 and drawn 1. Like, it's kind of mixed fortunes. A game before that in 2016, we lost 4-1 in the League Cup. I remember that game, actually. It's the other way around. So West Ham have beat us twice, and we've won 3 times, excuse me. So it's kind of mixed fortunes. West Ham's kind of going into this game a little bit hot, kind of Wigan 2010 with Martinez, that kind of hot, you know. What do you think of the threat, I guess? Yeah. So what do you think about West Ham in general, or what we're going into tomorrow?
Yeah, I saw the game against Watford that they won, which probably made them safe. They're about 99% safe now. There's still, I think, a mathematical chance, but a lot of results would have to swing certain ways for them to get relegated. They played very well in the first half. They played well enough. I think it was 3-0 at half time or something like that. They definitely deserved the win. I would say that the question mark of a West Ham will be, how will they go, given that there's not that much for them to play for at the moment. In terms of that, they might just switch off 1%. They've achieved what they wanted to achieve, probably post the restart, was just to ensure safety. But Moyes will be an interesting one, because I'm sure he'll want to get one over United. Just getting that result. I think that the thing about West Ham is that I think just mentally they're not going to quite be there. Obviously, traveling up the country to play United as well. I do think that it will be a comfortable win. I think West Ham have got things that could make it difficult for United. My gut is telling me that safety will make them sort of not quite play at 100%, and that should be enough to help United get the result, I think.
Well, United had a few rested players as well. I think the core of United's players, again, that kind of 11 to 14 players who could start every week, have to kind of get into the mindset like, okay, we have 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. We got 5 games to. No, actually, Europa League, we do get a good rest before LASK, and
it's about 2 weeks now. Without the FA Cup final, it's 2 weeks to LASK.
Sure, yeah,
and there'll be another 2 days after that, right? Because no one's going to play against LASK. It will be all of the.
Yeah, in fact, we'll probably see the likes of like Ethan Laird get played for them. But just coming back to this, I think most United players, I mean, they're all professionals. I quite like these group of players, as Gary Neville says. They're very likable compared to 3 or 4 years ago, even last year. I think they've just gone into the mindset. Next 2 games, the next game is a 180-minute game, and we need to get more goals than the other team gets, and that's about it. I think coming to West Ham, see, Michael Antonio is a tricky customer, where he's the sort of guy, physical. He's gone from back to right wing to striker, scored 4 goals the other day. He's that sort of guy where he has a good footballing brain, in the sense he could, he's obviously played in many positions, and just can't rule him out. And but I don't think
the ability to cause problems, I think.
Yeah, in that kind of very physical, athletic way. He's big, strong, fast. He's a dream FIFA player in many ways.
Not quite a contender-ish, but yeah, I know what you mean.
And they do have a few kind of rogue players. West Ham, they've always had Lanzini and Philip Anderson and all those kind of guys. Mark Noble loves beating United, so I'm in the same kind of boat as you. I think it's going to be tough, but I don't think it's going to be. I just can't see the win. I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw. Unfortunately, I think, and we'll get to that in a second, I guess. But I just don't see it going to be as easy as kind of you're describing.
I think it's going to be a win, but a nervy one. But
okay.
I think it's a genuine test of character for the guys as well, because if they get the draw, even if they get a draw, like you're saying, they will go 4th. So it's not quite like Southampton in the sense that they need the win to get into the 4th, and they could be 3rd at the end of the night if Liverpool do something to Chelsea. Even if Liverpool draw against Chelsea, United could go 3rd with a win. So as much as the FA Cup semi-final was a setback, because I do think that there was that optimism growing, and kind of like the balloon has been pricked a bit, I think, and it's probably made us a little bit more aware of the limitations of just having these sort of 13, 14 players who can do the job.
Yeah.
2 games to go. It's a big opportunity to go fourth or even third. A game, this could really set up the season. And I think that it's going to be a test of character for these guys to get the result. Where it kind of backfired a bit against Southampton, but that was a test of character. I'm really hoping that they pass this test of character because it's such a big game, actually, in the context of the season. They could even, with a big win, they could even sew that place up, knowing that Leicester would have to go gangbusters and leave themselves open to the counter-attack.
I think in terms of importance, this might be, I mean, put Europe aside, this might be the most important game of the season. Against Leicester might be the toughest game we have in the next, because I think if you had, I'd rather play any of those teams you could potentially play in the Europa League than play Leicester as a one-off.
You would rather play the Europa League teams than Leicester, sorry?
I'd rather play the kind of the run we could potentially have in the Europa League. Inter Milan would be the hardest team, and we could play them in the final. That's kind of, if you look at it, that common sense, we think Inter Milan, they're in good form. But I still think Leicester's a tougher game than any of those teams. And I think,
particularly at home, I mentioned last video that Leicester had a much better record at home than away, and that the Leicester game would be away for us. That was shocking against Tottenham. They just looked at 6s and 7s, but they seem to play better at home. It's that pressure of expectation, but United is a club with expectations, you know? We expect them we actually expect them to finish third. We'll accept fourth, but we expect third. That's the reality.
Perfectly put. To kind of sum up what we think of the game before we get into lineups is test the character, man. How are you going to bounce back? Fergie always said that. I remember so well 2000. What was the year? Benitez, Fax, and all that whole press conference. They came to I think it was 08-09, if I'm not wrong, and they beat us 4-1 at home at Old Trafford, and then we lost to Fulham the game after. But it was just I remember Fergie so well saying, "It's just how you bounce back. It's okay. People lose." And I think a lot of United fans, quite fickle fans, unfortunately, it's a loss, man. Like, you lose to Chelsea, teams lose. Like,
it's not football, man. You can't go a season unbeaten. It's only ever been done once, really, or twice.
City lost to arguably the worst of the best teams in Arsenal, a team apparently in shambles. You lose. I'm a bit nervous just because of the context of West Ham's form, but I'm not nervous in the fact that United is a better team. You get the goal early. If we get the goal early, I have every confidence. A 15-20-minute goal within the first 15-20. So, So let's move on then to lineups and predictions. So, who do you think? What sort of formation, I guess, and who do you think will start?
They will go to the 4-2-3-1. Definitely. I think Bissaka will play, but I feel like he needs a rest. But I think he's just going to have to gut it out to the end of the season. Lindelof, I think, is in a bit of trouble. That goal against Southampton and that goal against Giroud, not good positioning. He doesn't quite seem as quick as we thought he was, which is a bit odd to say because we kept talking about how quick he was and complimented Maguire. He doesn't quite seem to compliment Maguire at the moment. Maybe Bailly gets a game, but Bailly, I don't know how he's going to come off because he had to come off, didn't he, in the first half, obviously. So
I think he might. I think he might get the rest, but nothing serious, thank God, because it looked horrific at the time. But he said absolutely nothing. But logically, it's.
And I think Shaw will get a game as well. So it'll be interesting. Lindelof, I think he'd be lucky to play. I think he'll play, but I think he'd be lucky to play. And how they manage Matic through 3 games in a week will be interesting, knowing he gets the time off at the end. But I think he's going to be a very important player against Leicester. He's going to have to hold that gap between midfield and defence. The way that Vardy moves and runs, Matic becomes a very important player against Leicester, because when the back two split and he drops in, Vardy's just going to go, I'm going to have a run at you, son. And Vardy's, even at his age, is still pretty quick. So it'll be interesting to see if they save him for Leicester and maybe play McTominay in the expectation that they can have a bit more of a go at West Ham at home. I wish Matic could just play all 3 games in a week, but I don't think he's going to. We've had that issue before. We've run him into the ground.
I actually agree with you there. I think I don't think Matic will play this game. I think this is a kind of a McTominay kind of game. So, you know, tackle, get up, run, tackle, get up, run. I
and
think
you talk about Antonio's athleticism. I think McTominay would love that. He'd love a scrap. I
mean, that's yeah. So I think it's going to be. I think we're on the same page there. Brandon Williams should start at the left. Luke Shaw's still a bit doubtful.
It's a bit doubtful. I think if Shaw's fit, he should play, but I don't know.
Yeah, he'll play absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, it's McTominay, and the front three shouldn't change. Daniel James is obviously a little bit out of his depth.
When you say front three shouldn't change, you're referring to not the to the league game. Yeah.
Yeah. So Greenwood, Martial, Rashford. I don't think he's out of his depth. I guess he has become predictable.
Who's from out what of his depth? Sorry?
Daniel James. Out of depth is a bit harsh. I guess he's just more predictable than what he was at the start of the season. When everyone's like, "Oh my God, who's this kid? Two steps things at full pace," but everyone kind of knows what he's all about now. So you just got to change his game.
I think it's almost as if he's done enough this season. He's actually I think he's overachieved this season.
I agree. I do agree.
But I don't think he can achieve anymore. I know that sounds harsh, but Daniel James was an investment for the future. He was an investment for the season. They've actually got a lot more out of him than they thought they would. I don't see him playing in either of the league fixtures, even off the bench. I think he'll sit on the bench. They'll go to him if they want a specific type of solution. I just don't see him really having any sort of meaningful contribution in the league season.
Fair enough.
The remaining
to finish off, predictions. Yeah. So what are you thinking?
I'm going nervy 2-1 win. Nervy in bold and italics.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be 1-1. It's my first non-win prediction in the videos we've done, but I think it's going to be 1-1. I just think West Ham. It's not that United's going to play bad. I just think West Ham's going to do enough to grind out a win. So that's what I think. All right, perfect.
Can I ask you a question?
Go on.
There's another game going on at the same time, Chelsea-Liverpool. Do you think that...
Actually, I was going to ask you that, yeah. Go on, yeah?
It'd be interesting because Chelsea will be up for it, but Liverpool would have had more of a break. I don't think Liverpool, I don't think they're going to be too swayed by the prospect of helping a team out or getting into another team. But I do think that... they should have enough. The game's at Anfield as well, so I think they should have enough to get the win there. I don't think they'll win by a lot, but yeah, if Liverpool do pull off that win, I know it's hopeful. I would expect it, but it is a hopeful result, and I think they'll put United on level points with Chelsea. So those two results.
Liverpool for their COVID kind of post-COVID form, they are, for me, unfortunately, second, if not best team in the world behind Bayern Munich. And I don't think they give a shit who's going to play Champions League or not. I honestly think they could not. If you told them, United's going to be, they wouldn't give a shit.
Yeah. You know, there's historical rivals. I don't think rivals come into it, but people do. But I would say that Chelsea are modern-day rivals. So
yeah, and I think
if you're saying one thing, the other thing cancels it out. So. Yeah, even though I don't believe in it, if you're saying one thing, the other thing cancels it out.
Yeah, sorry, I think Liverpool's gonna do the business against Chelsea. As I said, and I've said it's come through time and time again. Chelsea peak and they drop off really with a really bad performance, and it will be a bad performance just because they've had a tough game. Like they did work well. They played hard against United. They're going to be tired, so I think that's going to come through as well as Liverpool being at the minute a superior team.
Yeah.
So I see like a nice little 2-0 win for Liverpool, and hopefully that loss puts a bit of extra pressure, puts a bit of extra tired legs when they play on Sunday.
Yeah. If your results go the way that you've predicted, United would be third on goal difference to Chelsea, with Leicester a point behind. So that would set up a cracker of a finish to the season.
As a Friday, you mean?
Yeah, say Liverpool win 2-0, 1-0 draw. United would be equal on points with Chelsea, and the goal difference would be something like 13 better. So
I'm just
15 maybe if Liverpool win 2-0. So
oh shit! Chelsea's goal difference is 15.
Yeah, it's a weak goal difference. Okay. They've conceded a lot of goals, Chelsea.
Yeah, they have. All right, perfect. Let's just hope. Well, let's hope Liverpool to the business. All right, Sham, do you want to take us out?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and tune in for the weekend for the final game for United versus Leicester. probably going to be the biggest game of the season. But first of all, we got to do the business against West Ham. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and catch you later.
See you later, guys.